Right. Welcome, everybody, to part two of our seven-part webinar on the Rebbe's Chinuch language through the lens of the 12 Psukim. I am joined here with Rabbi Pevzner. Really been enjoying getting to know him. Works with Sikhs in English, and he has been exploring the Rebbe's Chinuch language through the 12 Psukim for over 2 years. And it's been really rewarding for me and my children and my students to benefit from this. And those of you who joined the first one know what I'm talking about. And it's really been a pleasure. My name is Rabbi Zalmi Kudan. I'm the educational director of Lampeter's Jewish Academy. And I work with a lot of people through my Chinuch Tools platform. And I'm very excited to be here. Rabbi Pevzner, give us the 60-second intro.
All right. So Baruch Hashem, we're holding here, and we're going to be learning two psukim, which kind of relate to each other. The pasuk of Shema and the pasuk and Vehinei. So Shema is the second of the 12 psukim, and Vehinei is the sixth. It's a statement from Tanya, as the Rebbe structured the format of two from Teresh B'Ksav, two from Teresh B'Alpeh, and then two from Teresh Achsidus. And in a certain sense, this Shema, of course, is what encapsulates Yiddishkeit in a very big way. And Vehinei is the one that the Rebbe chose to encapsulate what is Chassidus for children. So these are obviously two very important psukim, and as we're going to demonstrate in today's presentation, they relate to each other, so it's appropriate to discuss them.
Right. So tell us how they relate to each other, and let's dig right in.
So, on a very basic level, Shema defines our relationship with Hashem. The Rambam says it's the Iker Hagadol Shakol Tolui Bui. This is the great principle. Everything is dependent on it. We're going to talk about what Shema means and how the Rebbe framed it for children. Vehinei is how this relationship lives in a child's life. What do you do with the fact that Hashem is with you? How does that change you? What does that do for you? So in a certain sense, the kernel of an idea is often found in Teresh B'Ksav, and then it's expressed and taught and demonstrated in Teresh B'Alpeh, and then brought to life in Chassidus. So that's what we have over here, where the message of Shema is going to be amplified and brought into tangible practice with the Vehinei.
So I think as I was discovering this with you, they could be standalone webinars. We could discuss Shema in itself and Vehinei on its own.
Absolutely, and there's plenty to talk about each. We're condensing to present it now with both together. It's simply because it's a lot easier to get the Olam to attend a 7-part course than a 12-part course. So that's why we're condensing. But ultimately,
and while we're doing that, it makes sense to connect these two because they do relate to each other. Where when a child understands the Rebbe's take on Shema for children, they do feel a close relationship with Hashem. And then Vehinei, that awareness allows them to behave really to reach their potential. And I've seen this live in my classroom and in my home, and now in my winter camp that I'm running now. So yeah, really excited to share this. Let's go. So here we go. So tell us, what does Shema mean for adults, or how do we traditionally understand Shema, and why is that a little different for children? Just give us the overview.
So Shema Yisrael, we always jump to the last two words. We always jump to Hashem Echad. That is the focus when we think about Shema. We think about Achdos Hashem. And while that is obviously true, that Shema is the expression of Achdus Hashem, and Achdus Hashem is very integral to everything we're trying to get to. In fact, the Tzemach Tzedek calls Achdus Hashem, that this is Chassidus, the concept of Einid Movadei, right? So, but nonetheless, when the Rebbe spoke to kids, you see that the Rebbe emphasized something that we often overlook, and that is Hashem Elokeinu. Establishing a child's personal connection with the Eibishter, that the Eibishter is your God. That means that you have Hashem's attention, you're in Hashem's presence, and you relate to Hashem directly. And Hashem Echad is very, very empowering, but it's built on a Yesod, it's built on foundation, where you are the one who will be able to appreciate it. Shema Yisrael, Yisrael is the name of our nation, but as the Rebbe one time explained, Yisrael is also the name of each and every Yid. So Shema Yisrael is listen up, you, individual Yid. He's calling Moshe Yisrael, he's calling Zalmi Yisrael, he's calling each and every child in our classroom Yisrael, and saying Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is your God, in a very, very personal way. And then we're going to build on it with Hashem Echad, and then we're going to be able to do something with everything that we learn about Achdus Hashem. Will relate in a very practical way, because oftentimes there's a detachment. We learn that there's nothing but the Eibishter, and then we find ourselves very upset and this one and that one, and feel like we're in charge, because it feels like there's nothing but the
Right.
Eibishter besides for our Yeshus. And Hashem
Well,
Elokeinu is definitely a very important step. Let's
right, right, or the situation in the world is different. Or the situation in my classroom is different. You want to tell me Hashem is the only person, but my classmate is driving me nuts, right? So, so what do I do about that? All right, here we go.
okay.
So this is something that I'm very passionate about. Uh, why is there no moment of silence in Chabad Chadarim, or should we have a moment of silence?
So
So,
we
and
know so we know the Rebbe spoke about a moment of silence. The Rebbe campaigned for a moment of silence. The Rebbe put so much effort into a moment of silence into American schools, and that children should have a moment to reflect on the Eibishter, on a super being. Ayin Raya Vezen Shemas. And I remember as a child listening to some of the sichos of the Rebbe on Living Torah, whatnot, and hearing the Rebbe talk about this moment of silence, and almost thinking, "Hey, how come I don't have that?" Right? And truthfully, I think it's a moment we could ask ourselves: when, for us as children, did the Eibishter's presence become very, very real? Right? At what stage? Right? In other words, it's very easy to say, yeah, it took me 20 years until Vehinei Hashem Nitzav meant something, right? And you know what I mean? In a very, very personal and deep way. So seemingly, the Rebbe has a beautiful exercise, a moment of silence where children are going to think about the Eibishter and do that on a daily basis. And the Rebbe promises that, so to say, that it's going to make a difference. The Rebbe said it's going to stop crime. It's going to reduce juvenile delinquency. And here, shouldn't we be thinking about the Eibishter? And the real answer is that the Rebbe is very clear that in frum schools you don't need it. In frum schools you're not supposed to have it. Well, I'm not here to convince you, yes, introduce a moment of silence. The point is that Shema Yisrael on a daily basis is meant to be something so real for a child that he's connecting to the Eibishter that, the Rebbe once said, why did he choose Shema? Because it's a pasuk we say twice a day. Right? In other words, this is part of a child's life. So if we're going to give them the tools to make Shema real, it's going to be very, very special, because they're going to be saying Shema before bed. They're going to be saying Shema in the morning, besides for chassiding the 12 psukim here and there. And the message of Shema is going to be internalized. And the message of Kabbalah Somach Shemayim is an alignment that everything in my life is going to be connected to the Eibishter, with the Eibishter, and that is really, really powerful. So our moment of silence is not silence. Our davening in school is not because we need a paterzech and we need a daven. It's somewhere. Kids used to daven before coming to cheder. Now they're in school to daven
right.
because we're going to teach them how to daven in a certain sense and make
Yeah,
that real.
in the guidelines to Rabbi Chadikov as guidelines of teaching davening in school, and it says there that we don't daven in cheder, we learn how to daven in cheder. And I think this is such a powerful moment right before we say Shema. Kiddush, we're going to cover our eyes right now because you and Hashem are having your private moment right now. And this is the time that we get to remember that Hashem is my Hashem. And let's think about that as we daven, right? Let's focus on that when we daven.
The Berkeh was the Bal Mesidus Nefesh in Russia, came out of Russia and became a Malamed in Kfar Chabad. And before Kriya Shema with his students, I don't even know the age. I'm pretty sure they were quite young, 7 years old. Before Shema, he used to tell them Mesidus Nefesh story, right? And then they would say Shema, right? He would frame Shema, right? Okay. Let's
Right. So let's see how it plays out. So this idea that Hashem is your Hashem, it's a personal one-on-one relationship. I know that Rebbe often expresses this through saying brachas. That Rebbe often gives examples of saying shahakel on a cup of water, and this moment that we have with Hashem is throughout the day, not only in Shema. So talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
In the bracha sense.
So a child says Baruch Ato Hashem. right? Which refers to the Eibishter in second Lashon Noichach, what's called in English second person. He's a child talks directly to the Eibishter. And you might say, what do you mean a child does? Everybody does, right? That's the nusach, right? But the Rebbe spoke about it, Simchas Torah Tavshin Mamalif, it's just after founding Tzivos Hashem, that when a child says it, it makes sense to him that he's talking directly to the Eibishter, because the child is in touch with the fact that the Eibishter is everywhere. The child, for him, it's easier to be panim el panim, so to say, with the Eibishter. While adults take things al pi seichel, children really take things without seichel, right? So the adult is trying to establish it, to make sense of it, to understand what it means that that there's no place besides for the Eibishter, and meanwhile the child gets it, like Ataka says in Torah that Hamor bezgalus, and that's why Tinoikes refer to the Eibishter. Shem Shemaim Shag B'Fichel, right? They refer to the Eibishter. For a kid, the Eibishter is real. The Rebbe illustrated this by once explaining that children ask questions on everything. One thing they don't ask is to prove the Eibishter's existence, because a kid knows it, a kid feels it, and a kid feels it so tangibly. I think we have another slide prepared to.
Yeah, I think we can keep going.
Okay,
So
Etzem Hanashama. It's very interesting with kids, because what is the perspective? How do we look at a child? It says in Shulchan Aruch that the Knisas Nefesh Olikis comes, right, b'shas bar mitzvah, right? So therefore, one would think that children are not as shayach to
spiritually
the ideals
immature,
of Yiddishkeit.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
the ideals of Yiddishkeit are less shayach to them as adults. Right? They're potem in ha-mitzvahs because they're unreliable. Ein lahem das, right? And they're less shayach. The whole conversation really of milchemes hayetzer, the whole conversation is really, you could say, foreign to children. There's a chiddush that the Middle Rebbe writes, that a child, that you could do tshuva for the things you messed up in childhood, and it's a chiddush because you were just a child, so therefore you're a potter. Then comes the Rebbe and makes Tzivos Hashem, and is teaching all about the importance of a child overcoming his milchemes hayetzer. The same milchama that Shulchan Aruch, you might say, doomed him to fail in, because Shulchan Aruch said, you're potter because you won't necessarily succeed, and we can't hold you responsible. And that's the campaign that Rebbe is going for. How? How do you make sense of that? So the Rebbe once discussed this in a Farbrengen in Tashim Mem Daled, where the Rebbe said that when a child doesn't have the neshama yet, it's referring only to the keiches hanefesh of the neshama, the nefesh alikis. The essence, the core of the nefesh of the neshama, the etzem haneshama, which is one with the Eibishter, you can't say comes in gradually. Are you Jewish or you're not Jewish? The child is Jewish from the very first moment of life. So you can't go and say that he doesn't have the etzem haneshama. Therefore, instead of having a mahalach of chinuch, where I'm trying to give adult chinuch, adult Yiddishkeit to kids, the Rebbe found a way to make etzem haneshama dike chinuch, right? Chinuch that speaks directly to the core of a yid, that is an appropriate inyan for children. So when you look at a child, what do you see in the child? Are you looking at the seichel of the child and evaluating how much they're able to understand? Or are you recognizing that here is a child who feels the Eibishter is real? And I could tell you that so often I've asked my own children, I've asked other children, who is in the room with us? Within a split second, they answer the Eibishter. They answer the Eibishter. If I would ask an adult the same question, you would be like, what are you referring to? Right? A kid, it's like on their mind. It's as if they feel the Eibishter's presence. They're in the panorama of the Eibishter's presence. They know about it already.
Yeah. I see it even practically. In other words, a kid came over to me last week in school. I can't do this test. I said, listen, Hashem is sitting here with us. And I believe if we focused on that, you could do a lot more than you've done already. He didn't even respond to me. He just went down, sat down, and did another 6 or 7 questions. It wasn't like, I don't feel the like that whole discussion didn't happen. And I agree. And we're going to talk more about other tools and other ways that we see that children really do realize this as a fact. And that is, as an educator, as a parent, you know, knowing that your children know that Hashem is real and that they relate to the Torah on the highest levels and an etzem way is something that the Rebbe really brought to the world. I think it's one of the biggest gifts we have in this entire conversation. The whole Tzivus Hashem programming we do in school is, missions and the Balachta B'dracha program. We can talk about that a little bit more later. But this whole idea is based on the fact that children know that Hashem is real. That's a given almost.
Children know that Hashem is real, and when a child davens, he knows he's talking to the Eibishter.
Mm.
When a child gets a little bit older, it's common, before adolescence, it becomes harder for children to daven.
Mm.
Why? Because then the child is more thinking al pi seichel, right? And then, hey, where's the Eibishter? I don't feel him, right? And then,
Or how
right,
come this happened? How come that
right?
happened? Right,
And
right.
then it's like, okay, come on, this is a waste of time. I davened already yesterday, and it feels like I'm talking about the Eibishter, but I'm not talking to the Eibishter. And
Mm.
it's a very, very normal step in the process because the way it is that the neshama is misgale. The etzem and neshama is present as a child, as a very young child. And the avodah of Tzivus Hashem is that we should channel it into the Keiches Goyim, that this should become who the pnimius of the child is, that this should
Mm.
download, so to say, this should integrate into the entire Mitzias. Very good. So this,
Beautiful.
right,
And this kind of flows into our next slide, where we start to see that the verbiage in the Shema is singular, v'ahavta l'kecha b'vavcha, and this leads into this personal relationship, that it's not just a global Hashem, but it's my Hashem. So how does that work?
So the Rebbe spoke to kids, and the Rebbe said that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is your personal Eibishter. You have the full attention of the Eibishter. The Eibishter, even though he's busy with the entire world, he has individual attention just for you.
Mm.
And the Rebbe used the word Hashem Elokeinu. You might say, hey, it's a Lashon Abim. Actually, it's not really. The whole Shema is in a Lashon Yochid. It's a Lashon of you. Shema Yisrael could mean you, the individual. Doesn't necessarily mean you. It's Klal Yisrael, right? And if you want to know what does it say, Ataka plural, right? It says ours, right? Because it's twice in Chumash Dvarim that Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to the Yidden, and he doesn't say Alikecha or Alikechem, but rather he says Alikeinu. And that Tzemach Tzedek teaches in a Maimer that Alikeinu means that over here Moshe is helping us internalize the realness of the Eibishter. Moshe is helping us internalize the Das Elyon of Bittul of Yehudi Law. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu is helping us connect to it. But Alikeinu is Lashon Yochid. It's you and Moshe, but you. Right? That's the big vart that you're trying to convey. I remember one time teaching this to my son when he was 3 years old, and he came in. He came in and he needed a drink, and I was in the middle of doing something else, and I wasn't able to help him. I was in the middle of changing a diaper of the baby, right? And there was no cups, and he needed a cup or whatever it is, and I told him, right, that Tati can't do two things in one time, but who could? So he said Hashem could do two things in one time. Right? So I said, very good. Yeah, okay, whatever. We had this whole little conversation about it. And then I asked, when Hashem is busy with one thing, could he still give attention to the second thing? And he said, yes. Right. So then I finished the diaper change. I got to give him the cup of water. And I said, okay, and when we make this bracha, who's listening? Yeah. So he said, Hashem. Beautiful. Now, this wasn't a nice moment to find an insight. This changed life, because from then on built something in saying brachas, that he knows the Eibishter is listening with full attention to his bracha. Right? And it changed my brachas. Right? It's just an amazing thing that I would have never known to teach if not for the Rebbe's sichas emphasizing Elokeinu, is that it's the child's Eibishter with full and individual attention, and you see a
So
tremendous difference. I already spoke about it, and I don't want to say too much. I already did an article a few weeks ago in the Kfar Chabad about it. But yeah, it's powerful.
It's very powerful. It's very powerful. I have a little bit of a Sor Meirah story. I had a child who a lot of the kids were complaining that when the teachers aren't listening, he's using the peh and it's uncomfortable, distracting, offensive, whatever it was. So I called him over and I said, I don't know if I believe stories, but this is what I'm hearing. Tell me about it. And he shrugged his shoulders. He said, yeah, a little bit, whatever. It's not so bad. The words I'm using are not so bad, and I'm allowed to. My parents let me. I said, what you do is really your personal relationship with Hashem. Hashem and you have your own personal thing. And I said, you have to, like I explained to him. I said, Hashem is really, this is your Hashem. So I don't feel comfortable getting in between you and Hashem. But I just want to ask you this question. If you knew that Hashem is here with you every single moment, and Hashem is standing right next to you, wouldn't that knowledge change the way you speak? He said, probably. I said, well, you know it, right? He says, yeah. I said, so what do we have to do? He said, I just have to think about it more. And we'll get into the mezuzah thing, but I gave him that exercise of the mezuzah exercise. And also when we say brachas, and it made a difference. It made a huge difference in this child. And again, because it's a 10-year-old child, because he knows that Hashem is real, and because it's okay that Hashem is real, and it's not that part was not up for a conversation. That was real.
Yeah, I just
There's
want to say
something,
one
yeah,
thing. I just want to say one
yeah,
thing. When we say Hashem, we have a personal relationship with Hashem. Sometimes
yeah.
people use those words in a very it's a confused manner where, okay,
Okay.
you have your own relationship. I'm not going to get mixed into
Ah,
you and the
uh,
Eibishter. Your
uh,
Yiras Shemayim is not my headache, and so on and so forth. And of course, in Chinuch, the whole focus of Chinuch is that, yes, my students' Yiras Shemayim is my headache. Right?
mhm.
My students' Yiddishkeit is my headache. This is my job. This is what I'm here for. That's not the intention. And actually, if you think about it, Torah Tziva comes before Hashem Alekeinu, right? In the
Mhm.
structure of the psukim, a person cannot go and say, "Yes, I'll connect to the Eibishter on my terms." Right?
Mhm.
The first thing is, yes, the Eibishter gave you a Torah, and that Torah is your Yerusha. You're bound to this Torah, and this Torah is the way. So when you have your own personal relationship with the Eibishter, it doesn't mean that you're in charge to write the own rules.
Yeah,
Right? It's the
right, yeah,
Abishter who sets the rules of this relationship, and it's
yeah,
very, very right for you. It fits
yeah,
very well for you to follow the
yeah.
Abishter's program. I just wanted to make that clear before.
Yeah, good, 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 very good. Yeah,
Okay.
excellent. Okay, let's go. So how does the Rebbe teach the echad part to kids? Because
Ah,
we
very
spoke
good.
about how adults
Ve-
focus on it, but how do children focus on it?
Very good. So once we establish that Hashem Elokeinu, once we establish that the Abishter is the child's Abishter, then
Mm,
Achdus Hashem presents itself to the child in a very personal way. Because then the Abishter is the Balabas, the Abishter is the only one, and that really matters to my own life. So the meaning of Echad, the Rebbe explained three explanations. The Rebbe explains in a Yud Beis Tammuz Verbringen, three dargis in how you explain Echad to a child. The first is that there's a hierarchy of power. There's the teachers, there's the principals, there's the directors, there's the counselors, there's the head counselors. Right? There's always a chain of command. And the Eibishter is Melech Malchei Amlochim. He calls the ultimate shots. He's in charge of everything. And you might say, hey, this is so niggledik. Come on, let's teach Chassidus. Let's teach Ein Milvadi. There's nothing but the Eibishter. We have to stop and realize that Chassidus brings this idea to life too. It's so, so powerful to tell a kid who's intimidated by another kid on the playground, who's in charge of you? And the kid realizes Hashem and not my chaver who's being a little bit aggressive. And the whole you solve so much before you even get started because you give the child such clarity. Hashem is the boss. Hashem is the ultimate boss. Right? The Rebbe deepened it. The Rebbe structured it that there's three dargis and you could explain one after the other. Obviously, you could speak about all of them, but for a child to really internalize them, there is an element of step by step by step. The next thing is that really the Eibishter is the only force. Kegarson biatachaytsev, there's nothing. Hashem is the worker who yields the tool. Just like you could give an example, like a hand inside of a glove. Right? Everybody understands that it's not the glove doing it; it's the hand. Al derech zeh, everything is the Eibishter. So Teva is from the Eibishter, right? The Rishoyim are from the Eibishter. Everything is from the Eibishter. This bully is from the Eibishter. Everything is from the Eibishter. So then it adds a whole nother hezber and a whole nother taikif of how am I okay? Because not only is the Eibishter the ultimate boss, but really the Eibishter is the only boss. There is no other power. And finally, we have the beer that a child may not be able to intellectually understand. Viodata is more of the aveit of an adult, but they could know it on a basic level where they know that the Eibishter creates the world. A child knows that the Eibishter is real, and the world is only real because the Eibishter made it. So if so, the Eibishter, Ein Movade, the Eibishter is the only real thing. We talk about Bereshis and we talk about the fact that the Eibishter is creating the world. The Rebbe didn't emphasize so much his Havos Tamidus and the details of the Hesper for children. But the point is, they know that the Eibishter is what makes the world real. The Eibishter is what makes it real. So the only factor of existence really is the Eibishter. Over here on the left side of this, on the right side of the screen, you also have the Psukim of Altira. There's a beautiful, very, very powerful Sikha of the Rebbe Benegir to Purim. Purim Tavshin Chavav, it's Mugin Lukot Zichas Chel Aleph, where the Rebbe describes Mordechai's recognition of the children's Amunah. We're hearing the Psukim of Altira, Utzuetz of Adzikna. And the Rebbe explains Al Derech these three dargas, where the child, one after another, is expressing the fact that only the Eibishter is in charge. And the Rebbe explains over there that why Mordechai was Samach Simcha Gdeila, because the children didn't have this attitude only bebeis hasefer. It wasn't only in class, but when they were walking on the street.
Right? It says they were walking out of school.
When they're outside of the classroom, that's where they were imbued with this Achdus Hashem. It's no doubt that the Rebbe's intention is that our children should have similar attitudes of Altira and Utzuetza of Adzikna, that the soldiers of the Eibishter should have internalized these messages and not internalize that there is a Eibishter who is the only one, but it's my Eibishter who is the ultimate power. It's my Eibishter who's the only one, and that is completely transformative. The Rebbe speaks about the Lahash B'Seivu Misnakim, when you give a child such power, right, that there's nothing else besides for the Eibishter. So the Oyevim Masnakim can start up, etc. Surely the Yitzhara can start up, and so on.
And when he does start up, that's B'chol Dor V'Dor. There's a way to free yourself from it, which
absolutely,
which is another for another time. But it's very cool. Yeah, I had a story a couple of days ago with this. We woke up in the morning expected to go on a grand trip in camp to amusement park, and Baruch Hashem, Mashkach Pratis, another camp was also planning on going, and the director called me and said, I hope you know that they closed the park. And this is after getting everybody in the right size t-shirts and davening and everything. Anyways, it's the middle of davening, and we find out that we're not going on the trip. So I told the head staff, well, we have 20 minutes right now to make up a new plan, but I want to communicate this to the children right after davening. So right after davening, I got up and I said, first of all, I want everybody to take a breath, and I want you to feel your chair holding you. And I want you to know that we know this already, that it says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, that Hashem is my personal Hashem. Hashem is right there with you in the chair. Hashem is right next to you. And nothing can happen, Hashem Echad, nothing can happen in this world without Hashem's permission. Hashem is the only boss of the world, and He wants the best for us. And He absolutely wants the best for us. And we took 3 breaths, and then I said, okay, now, Hashem is the only one who creates everything in the world, and the rain is Hashem's rain. And the people at the amusement park, they also can't make decisions without Hashem. He's their boss too, and they decided to close the amusement park, so it must be something good. So here's what we know. On Sunday, we're going to have the best day of camp ever, because we're starting off with a picture, and then the amusement park, and we're ending off with a banquet. Last day of camp, it's going to be the best day of camp ever. And today is also going to be an unbelievable day, because Hashem is guiding us to a much better schedule than we were planning. And as the camp was great. I got a text from a parent. I'm just going to read it to you. Menachem told me that Rabbi Zalmi is so cool. When he got up to announce that Magic Mountain was shut down, he did it in such a smart way that no one even got upset. It sounds like a happy. Usually we would get so annoyed and everything. Anyway, but cool. The point is that the children get it. They understand it. This is a language that speaks to them. It really works. That's all. All
Yeah,
right.
we spoke about that last session where the Rebbe is speaking to the eye level of children. It
Yeah.
might be very difficult for an adult to look at a change of plans for the counselor, director, and head counselor where you thought you had your day all sorted out, and now the Abishter gives you but for the child can get it. The child can. Right? They have less, it's less covering up that etzem and hashamala, and that etzem and hashamala could shine through, and they could appreciate the taka. The Abishter is the only one. So this really concludes the pasuk itself of Shema. The pasuk itself of Shema is Hashem Elokeinu, right? Hashem Echad. But when the Rebbe introduced Shema, the Rebbe said that each pasuk has a bechein, where the Torah tells you what you should react, how should you feel. In other words, we're not just telling you Hashem Elokeinu and Hashem Echad to apply this concept
It's
of
not just information, right? Yeah.
no, it's not even of
Yeah.
bitochen and emunah and such,
Yeah.
but actually there's a emotional bechein too, and that is v'ahavta. The Avos Hashem in the world of Chassidus, the one hand has gets so much focus. On the other hand, we also feel, because we're familiar with the truth of what Achdus Hashem is, it feels very out of reach. But the Rebbe spoke about kids having a shaychus to Avos Hashem. And the result of the pasuk is that kids should love the Eibishter. And the Rebbe even spoke about kids loving the Eibishter in a way of b'chol ma'idecha, that it overflows, the Rebbe teached. That it's not just a feeling in my heart, but it also influences my actions, and it causes me to also influence others. So that you have this idea that the Ava should be a real Ava. And it's not so far-fetched because kids, b'chlal, have big feelings. Everything they process with feelings. While an adult might be cold approaching Leil HaSeder and trying to flip through some Sfarim to find something inspirational to share with his family, the kid is jumping up and down because it's almost Pesach. Right? Everything by a child is with emotion, with feeling, with big feelings. Right? Also about their zippy cup and blanket, you're also going to get some big feelings. Right? So about their Eibishter, who does so much goodness to them, right? And the Eibishter loves them in particular, as the Rebbe spoke to kids about the fact that Kinar Yisrael Vayavehu, which the Medrash teaches, that it's dafke because Yidden are the Eibishter, a young child. That's why the Eibishter loves them, right? And that is reflected specifically in kids. Every Yid is loved by the Eibishter, but by an adult, it might be covered over a little bit or less noticeable that they're the Eibishter's child. Mashenkin by kids, it's very noticeable. Al Derech said, by the way, there's a letter from the Rebbe to a chassid after Yud Shvat, where the Rebbe tells him that the Frierdiker Rebbe, right, he should put a picture of the Rebbe by his son's bed. I think his son was struggling with nightmares or something. Right, put a picture of the Rebbe by his son's bed and tell him that the Rebbe, that just like Hashem loves particularly the children, so too the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, particularly loves the children and showers brachas upon them. Right? So this concept that a child feels the love of Hashem, so reflects the love of Hashem, is very, very real. So if we have children, and we're not seeing that they're consumed with love of the Eibishter and b'chol meidecha overflowing with love of the Eibishter, it's just a reminder to us to emphasize more to them how much connected they are to the Hashem Elokeinu and to the Hashem Echad, and then you're going to see the result in a v'ahavta. It's
Yeah.
really, really incredible.
I had a nice story. There was actually a kid whose hair was growing long. We have different types of uh, children, families in our school. So, it's not such a clear-cut dress code. And so I mentioned to him, I said, you're almost bar mitzvah. You got to watch your haircut. He says, why? I said, because Hashem, has certain mitzvahs that have different parts of our body. The tefillin go here. And Shulchan Aruch says, you got to watch how long your hair is. And he says, so I should probably get a haircut. I said, Hashem's going to love that because you're doing it for him. Anyways, he comes the next day with a haircut, and I hear another kid kind of commenting in the. I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation. I don't know who started, but one of the kids that had longer hair, a younger kid, was getting into it with him. And so he said, "Well, when you put on tefillin, you're going to for sure have to get a haircut." And I think the little kid is ready to come on. He said, "What if I don't put on tefillin?" And it was beautiful to see. This guy's like, "What do you know what a tefillin is? Do you know what it means?" And this is a kid who there may be some outside viewers who may not realize how passionate this kid is about the Eibusher. But I'm telling you that Hashem loves him and he loves Hashem and it's real. And you could see it coming flying out when he was challenged. And it's just so important for us as Mechanchim, as parents, to remember that this is true for a child. This is true. That Hashem loves me and I love Hashem. And maybe talk about the mezuzah, because I think that's a
Yes,
powerful moment
yes.
also. Yeah.
So in the rally of Sukkot Tafshin and Aleph, the Rebbe spoke to kids about the mezuzah by their door, and the Rebbe said that a child is curious about things. So when the parents lift the child to kiss the mezuzah, the kid is naturally curious what's inside the mezuzah, right? And if you teach the child that inside the mezuzah is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, the Eibusher is your Eibusher. So then you teach the child that Hashem is going to be with you in your room, right? And then you're going to sleep a healthy sleep, and you're going to sleep a calm sleep, and you're going to wake up in the morning with koyach to have a getliche day, right? These Asias from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe walks through the curiosity of the child about the mezuzah, the impact it can have. And not only for spiritual things, but for physical things, that it will help you sleep well. It will help you be calm. It's just really, really amazing.
It's very tactile. They're kissing a mezuzah. They're touching it. They're experiencing it. It's something that they experience all the time. So it's in their world. It's brilliant. Yeah. Someone asked a question here. How would you respond to a child in fifth grade that says that davening feels boring to them and repetitive? Is there something in the Shema lexicon that can help us?
So number one, I appreciate that this question is being asked here. Maybe it's asked because we spoke about davening, but us actually, when a child starts davening, the youngest ages, Shema is their davening. Shema is the davening. They're not yet davening Shema Neseret, they're davening Shema, right? And that is like the key connection. Now, at that point, you might ask, isn't tefillah a time for bakashas rochav, asking your needs? There's no request of needs in Shema. No request. So what makes it davening? Little kids, they daven, they don't ask for their needs, b'chlal, right? Because they're not even davening Shemay Nesra. They just say they say some matevu and ateinelam, and then they say a couple of short tefillas, and then they say Shema, and it's done. Why? Because davening is connection, right? And that is the word, that feeling that Hashem is Elokeinu. So really, the question is not, what do you tell this child? The question is, how do we anticipate that every fifth grader is going to have a difficult time davening in some way? Because every fifth grader is going to struggle because they used to daven like the Lashon in the Braten in Shedish Mitzvah Tefillah al Dase Hatinik, where even the great Mekubal wanted to daven with the simplicity of a young child. There's a time that a child stops being a tinnik. And they missed the davening when they davened al dase hatinik, when they pointed inside and they chuckled with every word through, right? And they were just davening with beautiful connection to the Eibishter, with the simplicity of a young child. And then they're saying more davening, they're saying more words. It's much longer, less right, and
less meaningful.
Hinoikness, the innocence of childhood has dissipated. So number one, let's start earlier. Pumping in Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Number two, at that stage, we really need to take it into our hands to really make a lot of focus about Hashem Elokeinu, right? Make the focus about when we're, if it's making a bracha, right? If it's just, you know what I mean? Let's say Hashem heard your bracha.
Also, I think also to understand that this is part of davening. The avodah, the work of the heart, the effort is in davening. I think that every adult also struggles in davening. At least I do. I don't know if everybody does, but sometimes it's hard for me to connect in davening. Sometimes, for whatever reason,
You're
I
saying
don't
normalize
feel
the
it.
struggle. It's supposed to be hard.
It's supposed to be hard, and Hashem loves that you spend 40 minutes a day trying to figure this out, trying to connect to Him, and you're frustrated when it doesn't work. That's so beautiful. That's so nice. You know, that itself is part of davening.
Beautiful, beautiful. I appreciate
Yeah.
that take. All
Okay,
right.
so let's
So are we
go.
ready to
Let's
wrap this up?
summarize. Yeah, let's summarize Shema because we're going to get into Vehinei. So we basically came up. We have four things that we've discussed that Shema in the Rebbe's language teaches us. Number one, that Hashem is real.
So number
Number
one,
two,
Hashem
that
is real. It's not only teaching the
to me,
children. The children don't need to
yeah.
be taught that Hashem is real. The children know that Hashem is real. It's that we should recognize that they know it. Maybe they're expecting it from us as well, but the child is appreciating that. The child knows that. Right? Then we have that Hashem is mine. Hashem gives me individual attention. Hashem gives me individual brachas. Something that I've emphasized many, many times to children by rallies is that the Eibishter is going to bench them and shower them, and a result of them also their families with brachas. Sometimes, well, I don't know, we like refrain from talking in that language. We're not there for the schar. The Rebbe talks about brachas, right? You're a soldier in Hashem's army. He's going to give you everything you need, right? That confidence and security that the Eibishter will supply you everything you need is really, really special. And then Hashem is the only boss. The bully is not my boss. The other kid is not my boss. No one else is in charge of me, besides, of course, the parents that Hashem gave me to be in charge of me, the moras and rebbes that are Hashem's partners in being mechanech me, and my parents' partners. And then Hashem loves me. I love Hashem. But v'ohavta, that is the bechein and is inseparable from Shema itself.
All right, let's do it. Vehinei, part two. Here we go. So, pasuk 6. Vehinei Hashem nitzav alav. Hashem is standing over him. He fills the whole world with his covet, with his glory. Umabit alav. He's gazing at him. He's staring at him. He's inspecting his innards, his kidneys, and his heart. Imavtek he is serving him regularly. So I think as an adult, sometimes this has almost a scary. Hashem's big brother is watching. Hashem is all over me. It could be almost perceived as suffocating or controlling. And so, how does that translate into the Rebbe's way of teaching this to a child?
Okay, so
How is that different?
I just want to say something about Vehinei in
Yeah.
general. So Vehinei is a quote from Tanya.
Mhm.
Now the reason why the Rebbe is selecting passages of Tanya to a child is because the Rebbe is telling us that children are shaykh to the concept of chassidus. Although chassidus they really learn later, right? But chassidus is already shaykh to the chinuch of a young child, and therefore we should be teaching these passages, this inyan. What is chassidus in the child's world? How did the Rebbe explain it? It's really negea to the fifth pasuk, kikod velech. The selection of kikod velechos because this is on the sharblat of Tanya. In other words, Tanya doesn't open up with here is a sefer of chassidish vertlach as other svarim begin, but rather this is a sefer of Avedas Hashem. And what is chassidus? It's a derech that helps you serve the Eibishter. And Kikarev means that it's natural, it's easy, it's fully accessible for you to serve the Eibishter. And the Rebbe is teaching this to a child. And when the Rebbe first introduced the pasuk, the Rebbe said, "And how is it korevilecha? What makes it easy? It's not stam a promise of the Torah that it's going to be easy for you, but rather there's an approach which makes it easy. And the approach that makes it easy is Vehinei Hashem Nitzav." Now, if Vehinei Hashem Nitzav Olav is scary, intimidating, and difficult to grapple with, how exactly is this going to accomplish a korev elecho hadavar me'od? How is this going to make it easy if it's frightening, overbearing, and and so on? And to be honest, this is something that really I only learned in this research for the project. There were bits and pieces that I started picking up from the Rebbe where I, just in contact with the pasuk of right, mentioning Vehinei, and I heard this shtickle and I heard that shtickle, but I never realized it in a full, a full sense of how the Rebbe transforms Vehinei really from the close context, maybe in the Pedic Tanya, that it's Yira, right? And really opens it up to something much, much bigger, as we're going to talk about in the next moments. So Vehinei is not Hashem is watching to catch you do something wrong. I remember as a child seeing a float. They did the 12 psukim by the Lag Baimer parade, and they did a float of Vehinei Hashem, and they had a big security camera looking at the world. Right? They made a globe and a security camera. Hashem is watching. Right? That's not the visual for Vehinei. Right? That's not the visual for Vehinei. It's not a security camera. That's not pshat. That's not what we're going for. So what are we going for? So right, Hine, it means, and here, right, behold is, right, it's a dover.
Almost means to see.
Exactly.
It means to
right,
see.
it's something
Behold means
apparent.
to see, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
something apparent. It's something right here. So Hine is, and all of a sudden, ta-da, Hashem is here. Right? So we'll talk more about the relationship with Hashem B'chlal, but the concept is that we spoke about Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is my personal Eibishter, and He gives me undivided attention. But here it's more than just attention. The Eibishter is with me. The Rebbe was once speaking to the kids in 770 by a rally, and the Rebbe said that the Eibishter is with you on your bench. Just imagine the visual of the dozens of benches lined up in 770 from the back to the front, and the Rebbe saying the Eibishter is looking, right? The Eibishter is with you on your bench. I remember telling my kids about it, and I noticed how they were looking with their eyes down at their seat of like, oh, right, like where's space for him, right? And of course that's childish, but that's exactly what the Rebbe was conveying. The Eibishter's presence is right here with you. Now, how does it feel when the Eibishter is right here? How does that feel? And I want to share one major sikha, right, of Pesach Tovshin. It's let's stay with this slide, right? It's Pesach Tovshin Mem Gimel. The Rebbe spoke about matzah being a symbol of humility, right? It's flat, it's low, it's a symbol of humility. And then the Rebbe said that, so then a soldier will ask, so then where do I have the strength to serve the Eibishter when things are hard? And the Rebbe answered, Hine Hashem Nitzav of the Eibishter is with you. He's your commander in chief, right? And he's going to give you the koyach, right? Which, this is a word that Rebbe said many times, that some kings, right, stay in the palace and the soldiers go alone out to battle. And here the Eibishter is unlike any other commander in chief, where he comes with each and every soldier. The Rebbe said we could, you could apply this to kids where they know that it's sometimes helpful when there's a difficult task. It's much easier to do when their tati or mommy does it with them, because their tati and mommy is bigger than them. If they need to clean up the blocks and you say, hey, go clean up your toys, it's much different than if you say, now we're cleaning up together, right? So, al derech zeh, the child, if they know they're with the Eibishter, and the fact that they don't see the Eibishter is not a problem because he's bigger than being seen, right? So a bazoi, this has a very strong impact on the child that he knows Eibishter is there. But then the Rebbe in this sikha took it one step further, and it's really tremendous. The Rebbe spoke about his father. The Rebbe's father, there's a story where the Soviets asked for a hechsher for the matzah. They were going to give him matzah flour, and they wanted the Rebbe's father to give a hechsher. And the Rebbe's father stood up and gave them a list of conditions of how to make the flour kosher. If you think about it, that wasn't an option. The Soviets, you either say no, and you face the consequences, or you comply. You don't give them a list of conditions. Essentially, as the Rebbe said it in that sikha, in that rally, his father stood up to a regime of 300 million people, where he was standing Nitzav Levad against the whole regime. And he says, you want a hechsher? Here are the terms. So the Rebbe explained how his father did it. And what was the answer? Vehinei Hashem nitzav olav. The Rebbe's father felt the Eibishter was with him, and that's what gave him koyach. That's how the Rebbe taught Vehinei. Right? Vehinei is the most empowering pasuk. The Eibishter is with you, and he's giving you koyach. Being watched on a security camera doesn't give koyach. Right? It doesn't give koyach. The Eibishter is with you, and that gives you koyach. That gives you toikif, that gives you strength, that to not be intimidated. And the Rebbe applied this in many sikhs, to where the Rebbe spoke about social pressure, peer pressure. A child is playing, and another child wants to eat something which isn't kosher, and so on and so forth. And Hinei Hashem nitzav olav. So of course I won't be the troublemaker. Of course I won't do something wrong, and so on and so forth. What is that? It's not, oh, I'm spooked out. It is the Eibishter is with you, helping you. He's empowering you. He's helping you. How are you going to act? Right? And you can really, really apply this, right? By teaching Vehinei Hashem the right way, the way that Rebbe taught Vehinei Hashem. You're going to see a huge shift in kids' behavior, and sometimes the reminder before a tough situation of Hashem is being with us to help us is huge. But then the Rebbe takes it. The Rebbe takes it even further. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nitzov. Nitzov means to stand firmly. It means that somebody is standing in a way of nitzov, he's getting support. He is supported by what he is standing on, because he's standing very firmly. Now, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya uses a lot of lashonos from Torah Shebiksav, a lot of from Tanakh, sometimes lashonos from Gemara, just in his flow of his language. However, this is not by chance. He's trying to be poetic. He uses these terms. Vehinei Hashem nitzav olav is a phrase from Parshas Vayetze, where Yaakov Avinu was having a dream, like shown on this illustration over here. And there's a ladder, and the Eibishter is nitzav olav. And the way the illustrators on the cover of the little medrash says here, there's a light shining downwards. There's no way to illustrate Hashem's presence, but there's a light shining downwards. He's in a spotlight of the Eibishter. What's pshat? What's nitzov? Not only is the Eibishter with him, showering him with protection and bracha, ushmarticha b'chol asher telech. Right? And the Eibishter is promising that it's going to be okay with Lavan, and you don't have to worry about Esav, and you're going to be good. I'll protect you, and I'll help you thrive. Right? It's more than that. Nitzov is taich, I am relying on you. The Medrash says, and the Rebbe quoted this like Ba'omer and other occasions to the children, that the Eibishter is relying on Yaakov. It says that the Shoyim, they rely on their God. And the Eibishter relied on the Ovis, that he will be a melech because they're mekabel is malchus, because they're living it. So similarly, by the Alter Rebbe using this pasuk Vehinei Hashem nitzav olav in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe was applying that the same message applies to every yid. And by the Rebbe selecting this as one of the 12 psukim, the Rebbe was teaching that the same message applies to every young child. That the Eibishter is relying on you for his melucha to be complete. He's relying on you uniquely. He puts all of that aside and he's relying on you. He's nitzav olav on this individual child. He's relying on Moshe, he's relying on Shema, he's relying on you, bilvat. Now, this is not chas v'shalom scary. This is most significant. So often the Rebbe wrote of the kids making trouble and whatever it was, to give them a responsibility. Right? To give them responsibility. I heard from somebody recently as how he's recalling years and years and years ago, he was a 17-year-old bacher making trouble in yeshiva, right? And the manal gave him 4 bachrim to tutor, right? And it changed his life. Right? It changed his life. It turned him around from being a troublemaker, fiddling with who knows what, to be a Torah yid. He went to be a mechanech and so on and so forth. Right? It changed him. Right? It made a big impact.
I find it in the micro all the time. I think that every time a child says I can't, it's either Yigaiti, that means you have to try, either you have to try harder, or look, Hashem thinks you can. He put you in the situation. He's standing right here, Hashem Nitzav, and he's looking. He's inspired also. He wants to be proud of you. He wants, he really wants you to do well, and he's relying on you to do this challenge because he put you in it. And he's the commander in chief. He knows where to put his soldiers. He knows what he's doing. You got this, and it's it does speak to children. They really feel that sense of responsibility and ownership, and they can do it. And we had a little bullying situation. I called out each child individually. I said, "What do you think Hashem wants?" Hashem was looking. He's here. He sees what's going on, and he's standing over us, and he's encouraging us, and he wants us to do well. What does he think? Is that are you willing to be a soldier in Hashem's army right now and stand up and do your mission? And every child said yes. And I checked in with everybody that did this school for 3 days straight. And the situation is getting much better because the children know that they can do this. Hashem's with them. It's amazing. It's a clear it's a clear way to success for children. It's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the final slide because there's a very
Yeah.
important message here. Not final,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
Oyvdoi, to serve the Eibishter. Right? The Eibishter is my commander in chief. The Rebbe, really, the pasuk Vehinei Hashem is formative to the whole concept of Tzivos Hashem. As you mentioned, you are Hashem's soldier. You want to teach Vehinei, it's all about you're a soldier. This idea, there's a most of you are probably familiar. There's a very famous letter from the Rebbe in English explaining why it's important that there be a army. Right, the fellow wrote to the Rebbe that he doesn't like the military elements of the army, right? And the Rebbe explained that in America they try to make everything with positive reinforcement, and positive reinforcement and encouragement can only do so much. And ultimately, there's no guarantee that just because you build somebody up with positivity, that they're going to follow that path. And they need authority. They need
The
to
Rebbe says
realize.
the Rebbe says a lot in there. I thought long and hard.
Yeah, exactly. Long and hard.
I've never
Yeah.
seen. I thought long and hard about what's the solution to this challenge that the children have a lack of kabbalah, a lack of discipline.
Right.
And the
And
Rebbe said the only thing is not.
and the as and the right, and they need authority. They need authority, right? And they need authority of their parents, the Rebbe said, but all the more so they need the authority of the Eibishter. And in American culture, it's this right. It's disappeared. And
Rights,
right, if the
rights.
Rebbe, what's that? If the
I
Rebbe
have
is talking,
rights.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And if the Rebbe is talking about this in the 80s, right, you could say in general, the whole concept of authority has changed. But here, the Rebbe, in a certain sense, you could say, envisioned a positive sense of authority, and the Rebbe made something which is compatible not only with the authority of the olden days, but with the with something that could fit for American kids in the present. With the Rebbe made Tzivos Hashem be a fun organization. It's fun to join. There's missions and prizes and rallies and shtudim and noise and right and badges and all that great stuff. There's fun to it. But what is the fun? The fun comes with an edenskite, a seriousness, as the Rebbe said, because you are being counted on. You have a job to do. And this is not right. This is not too much for a child because you're not saying you have a job to do. You're meant to be an adult. You're meant to be a kid. What kind of kid? A kid who's doing the Eibishter's missions, right? It's all going to be as appropriate to you, right? I think that's the next slide, right? In
yeah,
Oivdei
yeah.
Karoi, the Eibishter is looking how you're serving him in a way that's appropriate. And the Eibishter is looking, Beichen Kloyas V'Lev, he's looking into your Machshava also. The Eibishter knows what's going on, and he wants every part of you according to your abilities, so that's gentle, not too much. But also, the Eibishter wants the full capacity what you're able to produce. It's not enough to do as good as your friend, right? If you're, right, if
As
you
good
could
as
do
the
better,
class average.
right?
The
Exactly,
class. Yeah, I
exactly,
got 100 on
right?
my test, but you could do so much more. You could learn thesis. You could do.
Right?
You could,
Right? And to just encourage the kid to excel, oh, come on, you're going to be the greatest genius if you do better than your friend, is not a healthy message necessarily. It's competitive, and then it's right, it's the
yeah.
safe from type of chachma, but not necessarily is the kid going to even buy into it. But when you
Yeah.
tell him the Eibishter is nitzav olav, the Eibishter is looking for this from you, the Eibishter wants this of you. How empowering, how impactful is this message? The Rebbe, I want to say, do you have another slide for Vehinei, or this is it?
We have a summary.
Okay,
Maybe we can do the
so
summary, then we'll get a final story.
okay, no,
All right.
so Hashem is number one with me to help me.
Yeah.
Hashem is relying on me, and the Eibishter is helping me, and he wants me to be matzliach. Right? He's relying on my hatzlacha, he's banking on my hatzlacha, and so on.
Yeah.
The Rebbe taught Vehinei, in summary, as such an empowering message to children. Right? This is really the pshat in the Rebbe's encouragement of learning Perek Mamalef in general, and specifically this pasuk, right? This phrase. The Rebbe, in many, many letters, writes to people, and many yechidus and spoke to people about memorizing and knowing this Baal Peh and thinking about it and so on. And you're going to think, how can this change? How can this change a person's life? For example, the Rebbe says, right, if a person's getting angry, but anger problems, Vehinei Hashem, right, a problem with aggressiveness, a problem with anxiety, with mood issues, all sorts of things, with stuttering, the Rebbe prescribes Vehinei Hashem. Now you're going to ask, how does this actually work? What's going on? So if I know there's a security camera in the corner watching me, how is that going to help me? How is that going to change that I shouldn't stutter? How is it going to change that I should, right? It's going to intimidate me, and then I won't do anything, right? I'm going to freeze even more badly. But the idea is that a child, as we spoke earlier, naturally feels that he's in the Eibishter's presence. He naturally feels that he's in the Eibishter's, this is the panorama. The first thing he walks into the room, the Eibishter is here. So a bazoi, channeling that recognition of the Eibishter is here, that can solve all these issues. Vehinei Hashem nitzav olav. I know the Eibishter is with me and relying on me and giving me the keiches and toikef to fulfill my mission, will help me with all these stuff. Right? It will help me with all these stuff. For example, stuttering. A person's going to stutter when they're overwhelmed and intimidated by the crowd. Right? Obviously, there's a physical weakness in the muscles and whatnot, but right? But intimidation is going to exacerbate it. But if I walk into the room and I first notice that the Eibishter is here with me, and then I see the crowd who are waiting for me to talk, I'm going to recognize, hey, if the Eibishter is here, he's giving me the kayach, he's giving me the strength, and he's giving me the calm, so now I can talk. And this is such an empowering message. I feel like it's in the past hour, we spoke about the themes, the toichen, with some stories here and there, but there's so much to be thought of about where to insert these messages on a constant level, where to fill in the gaps, right, where these messages could really be applied. Because let's say Torah and Vishinamta, you might think I could apply it when we're learning Torah. Vehinei and Shema, this is the constant. It's negea to the mitzvahs tmidiyos of right, of recognition of the Eibishter, of liyachadoi, right?
Hashgacha pratis, I'm saying, right, everything that happens to me
Hashgacha pratis,
is
everything, and it's just so powerful. It's so powerful, and it's so transformative. Right? You could understand why this is what makes Korev Elecha Hadavar Moed. The Rebbe one time, I think this could be an appropriate close. The Rebbe spoke about Ki Korev Elecha Hadavar Moed, that this is the most natural and normal thing. That a child could tell the Yetzer Hara, you're an idiot, you're a shaita. Right? Why do you think that it's appropriate to chap without food, without eating, without making a bracha? The Eibishter standing right here, it's his food. Is it menschlich to take it without permission? What happened over here? An adult reads this and is like, what? This is easy? It was hard enough to make a bracha. Now you want to make it 10 times harder. I should realize I'm in the Eibishter's presence and he's watching me, so therefore I should have the derech eretz. The Rebbe presents that's the normal for kids. The normal
Yeah.
for kids is that they should feel that they are in the Eibishter's presence. And then, what's easier? To chap without a bracha and follow your bodily impulse, or recognize the Eibishter's presence? Which one is easier? Pick the easy one. And what's the answer based on Vehinei Hashem? The easier one is to serve the Eibishter. You're not giving a child a hard life, you're giving him an easy life. Where doing the right thing becomes the easy option because the Eibishter is with him. The Eibishter is giving him the keches, the Eibishter is giving him the strength, and the Eibishter is giving him the full focus and attention that no one else can. We always have to
Believes that
question
he
what's
could do and believes that he could do more than sometimes the parents, the teachers recognize in the child. Hashem recognizes the full potential of the child, karoi, and we can't cheat our kids out of it. There's so many times that I've opened myself up to this idea of just like, yes, I can't memorize all these words. I say, you know what? This is the assignment. You're in my class, Hashgacha Pratis. Let's, instead of saying I can't, say I'll try. How many do you think you could do? 10? Let's do 11. Let's do right. Let's push ourselves. Hashem is here. Hashem believes in you enough to put you in my class. Let's try it. And it's again and again and again. I had it with Chidon, a child who struggled greatly last year. He said, I don't know if I should try again. I said, Hashem is standing here. He knows you could do something. Let's try it. The child is doing unbelievable, phenomenally. And his parents are shocked. His parents are not surprised, might have Shabbos. But I think we have to do this. I just want to. Someone did mention about the security camera thing, and I know that on our website, the 12 psukim, and I know we're looking at changing it. It does have a security camera, but in our winter camp right now, we have 12 psukim cards that we made, which I'm going to share with Hashem. But I asked Rabbi Pepsin what I should use, and he suggested a commander in chief looking over his troops, and that's what we went with in the end. And it's a very powerful visual of Hashem is here looking at me and just wants me to do great. So, yeah, thank you. All right, I guess we'll open it up to questions. Someone's asking if there's a central message to the pasuk from the word alav. Is there the fact that Hashem is over me? My personal take after learning all of this was that it's like the Elikenu vart, like that Hashem is personally looking at me. It's with a pride. It's like Hashem's not just looking at us, at the army, at everybody else, but Hashem is Hashem has my interests in mind as well.
needs of all he's relying upon him. It's relying on the
Yeah,
individual. Olav refers
yeah,
to the
yeah,
individual, so he's relying
yeah,
on you, right? That's
yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Someone is mentioning that there's a lot of teachers have shared that they're learning the rallies with other teachers and themselves, and I cannot encourage this enough. I actually took that first sikh of Shas HaChinuch, and we made it the learning class of the camp this week, and the children love it, the counselors love it. We have older Bachram, but I think every mechanech and every parent should get involved with these rallies as much as possible. Um, Someone's asking if there's specific sources where we can see how the Rebbe clarifies that it's a loving overseeing rather than a scary security camera.
so. Number one, I want to see a sikha where the Rebbe does say it's a scary security camera. No, why would you think that that would be the message we teach kids if this is so much better? No, I'm kidding. uh, no, in all seriousness, you see this message. You see this message throughout. I'll just point to two sichas off the top of my head. Right, it's the sicha of Pesach, Tavshin Mem Gimel, as well as the Lag BaOmer parade of Tavshin Mem Dalid. Those are two sichas where the Rebbe spoke directly about this. There's many others. I think in we Bezos Hashem will have more Mechanchim made available on the chat, on the WhatsApp chat, right? For people to see this. Bezos Hashem, I'll post afterwards a list of sichas where you see consistently this message. But even that is not a comprehensive list because really this is emphasized many, many times.
Yeah. I think as you learn in the rallies, the Rebbe sometimes throws it in like almost as an aside to other things that the Rebbe is saying. Like, because Hashem is
Exactly.
here
Yes.
with,
Yeah. Very
because
much
Hashem
so.
is here with us, and therefore he knows that he can do the V'hafta, or therefore he knows he can do the Igaiti. Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? I'd like to give once again Yoshikayach to the Chinuch office, to Yivuz Hashem, Sichos in English, and all of the Moses that are coming together to provide this. Sheikh to the 12 Sukkim office, and let's Metz Hashem. We should continue uh, to live it up. What's our next Rabbi Pebster? What's our next training?
What is our next training? I cannot remember right now because there was conversation about the schedule if to make a change. So I don't remember right now at the moment, but it will be announced.
Okay, fine. But I think we know which one it is, right?
I can't recall.
Okay, okay, fine. I
All right.
believe it's key. I believe it's key in Yagaiti. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. How do we join the WhatsApp group?
There's a link on the website, 12psukim.org is .org.
Helpsicum.org. There's a link for the
12 written out as a one.
1, 2. Sorry, it's not 1, 2. It's the 12. The word 12, psukim.org. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
So,
Someone's asking. Yeah.
usually the Rebbe translates not just to express Hashem is so great, but actually to that even though Hashem is so great and he fills all worlds, he puts all of that aside to be Nitzov, to rely on your Aveda. You could say, what do you mean? Hashem has millions of Yidden. Everybody else is so important. Let somebody else do it. And they are zeroing in on you. So often we approach Avedis Hashem like it's my elective choice. Will I be is what will
Yeah.
I do? Will I learn today? Will I not? Depends how I feel. Depends how I'm right. And here it's like no, the Eibushter's Malay Cholad Kveda. He puts that all aside because he's needs of Allah and he's relying on you to do something. So it's not oh yeah, he's just here to help you, right? It's coming with a certain demand, it's coming with a certain authority, but in such an encouraging and empowering way. This is who you are, this is what you are, you're my soldier and you could fulfill this message and it's a mission and I know you can do it and
Beautiful. All right. Looking forward
it's
to
so
part 3.
Yashikaya Rabbi Kuden. Thank you for this.
Yes, absolutely.